I'm so glad Gordon Wagner's leaving, man. The stars on everything has got to go, man.
Hello and welcome back to the Plugged In Podcast, a weekly news show all about the future of transportation. I'm Tim Levin, Senior Editor at InsideEVs. We're back from the holidays to discuss the EVs we're most excited for in 2026. Patrick's still at CES in Las Vegas, and we'll hear more from him about that next week. So joining me is the one and only Mack Hogan, our Deputy Editor. Thanks so much for joining, Mack.
Hey, Tim. Good to be here.
Good to have me.
Good to have me. I'm just so happy for you guys to get to have me, get the special, slightly sick version of the InsideEVs podcast where we're both going to be clearing our throats a little bit.
Yeah. Get ready for that. How are your holidays? I haven't seen you face to face in a couple weeks. How's it going?
Yeah, it was all good. Yeah, I went back to Ohio and Michigan and then spent some time in San Diego. My lovely girlfriend knitted me this awesome handmade sweater, so got to rep it on the Plugged In podcast, of course.
Nice.
But yeah, can't complain. How about yours?
It was good. It was a snowy Christmas in New York for the first time in years that I can remember, which was really nice. It's always been kind of just depressing and cold and gray and not white or pretty at all. So that was nice. Yeah, it was a good time. So we wanted to start off the year talking about, I feel like it was really easy at the end of last year to get into a rut thinking about sort of the reasons that things were bad in the EV space.
Wait,
EV
things are
sales, EV sales dropping really hard in the fourth quarter, all these models being canceled, like the F-150 Lightning, this kind of, which was supposed to be the EV that took us to the promised land, getting canceled. But actually, you had this really good story a couple weeks ago that was about how there are over 20 new EV models coming out this year, and you were talking about some of the ones that you're most excited about. And it was actually a really good kind of reality check for me, because there is a lot to look forward to this year. There's a lot to be excited about purely from a product and technology standpoint.
Yeah.
There are a lot of new, really exciting new EVs across the board, cheap ones, expensive ones, really high-tech ones. So I'm excited to talk about that this week.
Yeah, and not just over 20. It turns out as I've gone through, we're now working on a story about really breaking down all of these. And it's, by my latest count, 32 new EVs, although exactly where you draw the line of, what is a new model versus what's a trim. And then obviously certain ones, as we'll get into, is the Cybercab going to come out in 2026? This and many more mysteries to come in the year 2026, I'm sure. But yeah, there's a lot of awesome stuff. And I think this has got me in a really good mood going into the year, just realizing that last year we had 5 or 6 things I was excited about, which was cool. And all of those ended up in the breakthrough competition, which was great. But this year I'm just looking at the list. I'm oh, there's a solid 20 of these that I'm really excited about. And then the rest are still important. So yeah, I think this is going to be a much more interesting year, not just in terms of what's available to us as consumers, but also as us as just industry experts and people that are interested in all of this. For me, I'm just really curious about what these products are going to do for the car companies they represent. Because not many car companies have not yet proven that they can make a compelling electric car. And it's going to become less and less acceptable as we move forward. So I'm excited to see some real efforts from some of these companies this year.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a bunch of kind of Gen 3, we call them, efforts coming from a bunch of these companies. They've kind of had a couple of goes at it, and now this is their real deal rethink of what their electric car should be like. So let's get into it. We have 10 plus cars to discuss right now. We're going to kind of breeze through some of these quickly.
Yeah.
But let's start with, in no particular order, we're going to start with the Slate truck, which is probably, for me, the one that I'm most excited about. It's the most different from anything we've seen before. This is a 2-door small pickup truck with a mid-20,000s starting price, and the kind of calling card is almost no standard equipment, right? Extremely basic, no radio, no screen, super bare bones interior, but super customizable. You can add on essentially anything you want to it to spruce up the interior, or even make it into an SUV with 5
Right.
seats. So this is just a completely different concept from anything else we've seen in the auto industry, period, not just EVs.
Yeah.
What do you think about it? What are your thoughts going to 2026 about the Slate truck?
Yeah, I mean, this is hard because I've been doing this for 7 or 8 years, and I think generally these days, I am obviously always surprised and interested in what the cars that are in front of me, but generally I think I have a pretty good idea of things going into a car or going into a launch to see how something's going to work. Slate to me is the biggest question mark. I have no
Yeah.
idea if this is going to work. It seems like there's a lot of interest, but I also really find it hard to believe that people are going to be spending, like, again, if you just want the truck with the SUV kit, so you have a covered rear space so that you can put rear seats in it, power windows, and Bluetooth audio. None of these are crazy asks. They are on every other car. You're going to be spending, and then maybe the bigger battery, right? You're going to be spending mid $30,000 in theory.
Yeah.
We don't actually know how the pricing is going to break out. But I think this is a concept we've seen. I follow the smartphone industry relatively closely. We've seen a lot of companies try to do this modular approach. We've seen that big in the tech world where there's all these startups that try to do this, but ultimately a lot of them fail for the same reason, which is that they underestimate that, like, most consumers are low information consumers. They're walking into a store saying, I want a product that does all of the things that I need it to do. And I don't really want to have to keep coming back here and asking more questions and buying more things. But in the car space, because cars are so expensive, there's a value option there. And then there's the customization and the excitement part of it. So I could see this going either way. I, as a consumer, am really excited for it. I think a cheap truck is right up my alley. But with the pricing, I don't know if they're going to be able to hit those volumes. What do you think?
Yeah, largely the same. I think one thing that we do know that I actually wasn't aware of until I started doing research on this not too long ago was that we actually do know how much the SUV kits are going to cost.
Oh, we do.
Slate's CEO said that it's about $5,000. So you're basically right. It's like, add on the SUV, you're looking at $30,000 ish. And then
assuming that means that mid 20,000s means $25,000, which when someone says mid, what they mean is
correct,
whatever that first number is, and then an 8. Like, I do think it's going to be close. That's my guess, but
yeah. So yeah, I think it really is a big question mark. I think there's a lot of people who talk a big game about wanting a more basic car, wanting a car with less technology, wanting a car that's cheaper to buy.
yeah,
Whether people will actually go for the base $25,000 or $27,000 one instead of, getting a higher monthly payment for something with kind of more features, who knows?
yeah,
I don't know. I think there's been a lot of negativity lately about it. After the initial launch, there's been a lot of like, well, it only has 2 doors. Who wants that? Or like we're talking about, what's the price really going to be like? I think that it's a real wild card. I think there could be a lot of people who are genuinely really interested in this whole customizability thing. There's a lot of people who maybe just want it for like their business. It'll be really interesting to see how it plays out. I think one of the problems is, like we were talking about, the battery, right? The base battery that you get in the cheap truck, 52.7 kilowatt hours, 150 miles of range. It's just not really acceptable for most people. So
it's a second car, and it's not a second car price. Yeah, I mean, I think that's, to me, one of the challenges, right? Like exactly what you're talking about, of like people, what they say they want versus what they want, revealed preferences versus demonstrated preferences or whatever, where people tell me they want a simple car, and then we have long conversations about, okay, this is the perfect car for your needs. And then they go into the dealership and they buy a model that's one model size larger and a higher trim because they got excited. They went to the dealer and they want Google Maps integration and this, that. They want cooled seats, heated seats, whatever. And I think that's a big thing, is that new cars in general in this country are purchased by relatively wealthy people who are willing to spend up to get those upgrades. So what Slate is betting on is that there are people that are in the used market or not in the car market at all that are going to come in because of this affordable access point.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge there is just that if those people are specifically excited about electric cars, there's a real opportunity there and are into the customization angle. When you start comparing it against things like a Ford Maverick or, a Honda Civic or cars that already exist in the $30,000 range, there's just fully complete, feature complete vehicles in that space. So you have to really love the concept. And I think what's hard for me and you to sort of talk about this is that we do love the concept. Like, this is something that I would love to see succeed. So yeah, this is a huge question mark, and I hope they pull it off. But I do think, your point about the conversation getting negative on them, part of that is just it's no longer exciting. It's not the new thing that we're all talking about anymore. But a big thing is that they now announced this when the tax credit existed, and they're going to be hurt by that more than anyone else. So I think there's still a path for them. I want to see them navigate it, but it's definitely gotten harder since they initially announced.
Yeah, super excited to see the production models or some pre-production models come out and start to actually tinker with them and get experience in person. Okay, we're moving on. Rivian R2. This one probably needs no introduction to our audience. I'll give one anyway. This is Rivian's first real mainstream vehicle. $45,000 starting price for a single motor rear wheel drive model, over 300 miles of range in some trims. This is really targeting the heart of America's car market, a place where Rivian really hasn't been yet, aiming straight at vehicles like the Model Y, the Toyota RAV4. So this could be a really big deal for Rivian, and I think a really big deal for the EV market in general, just because, I think we really haven't seen a strong, super high volume competitor to the Model Y, because there hasn't been another real software defined, really cohesive, really interesting EV. And the Rivian R2, I think, could be that. What do you think?
I think it could be that. I think what you said about competition is correct, that it's targeting the Model Y. When you look at the RAV4 customer, that's when you start to see this distance in pricing that I don't think you're going to be able to, this is another car that if there was a tax credit, $45,000 starting price for something with the Rivian brand, and then even if it's rear wheel drive, if that's 37.5, that's a real conversation. I think when you look at the fact that realistically that $45,000 rear wheel drive model, add the destination charge and then add all wheel drive, it's $50,000 car ish.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's the meat of the market. That's what the average car costs. But I do think that shows that we're just in a different era with EVs where, when everyone had the tax credit and was incentivizing the hell out of lease deals, you could make these cars exactly as cheap as a RAV4 in the real world. And I don't think the R2 is arriving during that period. I think it's arriving at this new era where, electrification is an upgrade charge. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because I think the Rivian R2 is going to be a roundly better experience than any gas vehicle. And I do think it'll pay off in the long term. I don't know what the initial volumes will be like, and I don't know. Rivian has definitely struggled to scale their service infrastructure and has struggled with quality and reliability in the past. So that's what I'm paying attention to most. Launching a new platform, very, very hard. So I want to see what they can do here. But I think if they can get this out the door with the service network it needs, figure out that initial quality stuff. I love the design. I have a reservation on it, although
so do I.
Something we should probably talk about is that reservations are not real. At the time it was like, oh man, I hope in 2026 I'll want to spend 55 grand on a car. I don't at this time.
No.
I'm not going to do that.
I had a feeling that wasn't going to happen anyway.
No, I was like, oh, that'll be my first EV. And then I leased a whole EV in the meantime. And, I'll probably get a depreciated one. But I think this is a real opportunity for Rivian. And I think, when you look at the way that future car companies are going to be structured, that direct-to-consumer model, the, top-down sort of structure, vertically integrated, killer software stack, a real focus on autonomy. Rivian is focused in on what the future is going to look like. It's just that Americans aren't quite there yet. We're not all rushing to electrify immediately. So I think this is going to be an interesting one, because I could see this, having a little bit of a slower start as they figure everything else out. But I think if it's not selling crazy numbers right off the rip, it'll pick up as people get more excited about EVs and as that, Rivian drives down the price, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest thing it has going for it is that, and RJ Scaringe, Rivian CEO, told us about this on the podcast last summer. He was like, the thing that surprised him most about building Rivian was that all of the wishy-washy stuff, like building a brand, actually worked out really well.
Yeah.
Rivian has this amazing brand. They have this kind of magic that people are attracted
Yeah.
to. It's a really magnetic company.
People
and you
ask
can
me
see
about
that.
it. Yeah.
Right, totally. And they are doing decently well with the R1S in certain places. They
Yeah.
sell 25, 30 plus thousand of them. And I
Outsells
think,
the Escalade in California, which is it's like the number one car in that segment for
right,
all
exactly.
powertrain options.
And I think you have a lot of people who are
Yeah.
untapped, who are looking at that and saying, the average price on those is like $90 plus $1,000, the average transaction price. You start to offer people one that's 45 or 50. I think that there's a lot of people who are going to be into that. I think the big question, like you said, one of the big questions is, EV demand generally. Like RJ has been saying, the big problem is there aren't any good competitors to the Model Y, or very few. So we'll have to see if this actually ends up pulling the kind of sales that he thinks it will.
Yeah.
The other one is the ramp up. They say they've done a lot of work on making this ramp up a lot easier than the R1 when they were just kind of pulling it out of their ass pretty much on their first platform. And as we've seen, building new EVs for a new startup is really, really hard.
Yeah. But I think you're right about the branding aspect where, I think I could see a lot of people moving from Mercedes and BMW into a Rivian, because that's the type of people who ask me the most about Rivian, because they did start with that higher end market. And I think they did accomplish sort of the Tesla formula of get people really excited and talking about it and seeing it with lust and with like, oh my gosh, I wish I could afford that, and then offer them the version they can afford. So I could see them really winning in that luxury space right now. And then as time moves on, R3 comes out, maybe we switch to a different battery or are able to drive down R2 costs, that you end up moving into like RAV4 level volumes. But yeah, I'm really interested to see how that'll work out for them. And especially as it compares to the next thing we're going to talk about, which is the Lucid midsize, where I think they've had the opposite problem. They've done a really good job on engineering the car, but I don't think, nobody asked me about Lucid, nobody but the nerdiest nerds. And so what do you think about that upcoming Lucid midsize?
Absolutely. So this is basically the Lucid equivalent to the R2. Lucid has had these amazing high-end, very well-engineered cars, the Air and the Gravity, but they're pretty unattainable for most people. Lucid midsize is going to be their Model Y-ish competitor. They say it's going to start around $48,000, according to rumors, and I think based on trademark filings, it could be called the Earth. And this is Lucid's first real high volume opportunity to get to people who don't have $70 or $80 or $150,000 to spend. What's your read on it? I guess it's bringing that Lucid engineering, the kind of efficiency that they put in these cars, the thought they put into the packaging, which is amazing. Bringing that to a Model Y sized car, I think is a great idea and a really big opportunity for them.
I agree. I think this one, I would say I'm most skeptical that it will be on sale, or at least in major volumes by this year, just because last year we thought we would have like Gravity totally ramped by now, or meaningfully making numbers, and it's taken them a while. I think, while I say that Lucid maybe more than Rivian has focused on the product itself, I think they like Rivian have the quality issues, they have the software bugs. I think their software is definitely a generation or two behind Rivian, and definitely way behind Tesla. So they have a lot of maturing to do as a company, but the things they do well they do so well, like that the Gravity is one of the best driving SUVs I've ever driven. The Air drives phenomenally and is crazy efficient and looks great. I just want to see them move the ball forward in terms of, advancing the actual product and getting a little more experience under it. And I think that's why, you can't do that until you build a lot of cars. And that's why R2 is going to be interesting. That's why Earth is going to be really interesting, because you can get as good a quality control as you want, but when you put 100,000 or 100,000 units out into the market, like, you're going to learn pretty quickly that you missed something. That always happens. That happens with every car company. And building those structures to address those, to learn how to catch those things in development takes time. So I'm interested to see specifically how this launch goes, because I think the product, once it's mature, is going to be killer, like the R2. It's just, where's the market? Where are the consumers right now? And especially there's a lot of consumers that are going to be coming to Rivian specifically aspirationally because they love the brand. They're outdoorsy, sort of relatively rich, younger types that want that product. I want to see Lucid make some more inroads on marketing too, just in terms of communicating what they are. And I think this is the best chance they have to do that.
This and Timothy Chalamet. Those are the two best chances they have.
Hell yeah.
And they're doing both. Okay, we're going to pivot to some not startup car companies, because a lot of the legacy, the old guard, is also coming out with these Gen 3, these really advanced and really cool vehicles this year. The BMW iX3 is one of them. We've talked about this a couple of times on the show because I got to drive it not too long ago. This is the first of BMW's Neue Klasse cars, a phrase that I'll never tire of saying, of butchering. It has an 800-volt architecture, 400 miles of range, 400 kilowatt charging. It is overall a totally ground up, blank slate sort of rethink of how BMW makes its EVs. New software architecture that's supposed to bring better and deeper over-the-air software updates. It is just, in pretty much every way, it is a gigantic leap past the iX, the i4, the i5, the BMWs that are on the road now, but are kind of like not too forward thinking, right? These are essentially adapted gas car platforms. Gen 2, now we're looking at Gen 3. It also has a surprisingly good starting price of around $60,000 to start in the US. What's your take on the iX3?
Yeah, so just to step out to the Gen 3 thing, because this was sort of terminology I started pushing, and I got on to write that story, and I think it's valuable to think about cars and smartphones on these parallel tracks, because iPhone comes out in 2007. That phone does not have an app store. Then iPhone 3G comes out, it has an app store, great, or maybe 3GS. Then they had the front camera on the iPhone 4, and then on the iPhone 4S, it becomes available on Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, anything but AT&T, right?
I had no idea that you knew all this, that you were a smartphone geek.
I used to review smartphones for CNBC very briefly. But no, just that those generations, I mean, you can see it going from this experimental, we think this will work, but we're not sure how, to like, by iPhone 4S, that is the iPhone that you basically still have today, right? I mean, it's different, it's improved in a million ways, but the core model already existed. And I think BMW is a great place to look at this, because you look at the early cars, the i3 and the i8, very interesting technological concepts. Both offered these weird, powertrains with the range extender on the i3 or plug-in hybrid on the i8, but they're wackadoo projects. Then Gen 2 is like converted gas cars, like i4 and stuff, and then they have one specialty platform, the iX, which we love, but it was $90,000, $100,000. Now we're entering Gen 3. This is what Neue Klasse, that's what they're talking about is, but it's also happening at Mercedes, all these other places. These companies have just figured out how to make one that's good. So based on what you've told me, at least the iX3, the software looks really good. The design, I think, has matured a lot. Just the, route planning, the integration of the EV specific features. I mean, these companies are learning organizations, but they learn slowly, and it takes a while to implement those things. So I think iX3 is the car I'm most excited about, because I love the way a BMW drives. I love a gas X3 or an X5. I think it's going to drive great. I'm super excited to get behind the wheel based on what you've told me. And this is like the #1 car on my list for like, I just need a couple people to buy them now and then for it to depreciate, and then in 3 or 4 years, because the BMW EV depreciation has been super steep, despite the fact that every BMW EV so far, to my taste, has been excellent already. So I'm really excited to see what this one feels like and drives like, because I think this is going to, like, once you get a BMW customer in this, they're never going to want a gas car again. And I think that's why I'm so excited about this Gen 3 thing specifically, because once you get that flywheel in motion, once you get people realizing that the EV is the upgrade play, that it's faster and quieter and smoother and the tech works better, the rest is just going to solve itself. And this is, like, to me, the tip of the spear, the first, legacy product that I can say, okay, that looks like a car that I would take over a Tesla or anything else.
And it's not, and it's an upgrade, but it's not a $20,000 or $30,000
Right.
upgrade like a lot of EVs have been in the
Yes.
past. It's like $10,000 or something.
Yes,
It's
and it's
something
in
that
the segment, you know, the one that everyone cares about. So
absolutely. Similarly, on a similar note, we have the Mercedes next gen cars, the CLA, which is the sedan, and the GLC, which is the crossover. Same deal, new software defined platform, which Mercedes calls MB.OS, built for better over the air software updates, more range, faster charging than ever before. I think the design on these, especially the design on the CLA, I think is really cool. GLC, maybe not quite as much for me personally.
so glad Gordon Wagner's leaving, man. The stars on everything has got to go, man.
Yeah, and so just a couple of specs. The CLA gets up to 374 miles of EPA range. We've also seen it do a lot more than that in an Edmunds test, which is not exactly the same as EPA testing. It went well over 400 miles. So these are, I think, really promising in pretty much the same way that the iX3 is. The CLA costs starting under $50,000, I believe. So again, just like a really good value EV that we haven't seen from Mercedes before.
Right, and as Patrick George just reported, this is the first non-Tesla car to do hands-off, eyes-on, urban adept, not autonomy, but the car's not driving. You have to be careful about how we say this. But like FSD, the Mercedes, you'll be able to get in it and tell it where you're going, and the car will navigate while you are still legally driving and supervising. This is all powered by an NVIDIA system, which will also go on the GLC. But it's an interesting point because Mercedes has been doing the whole stay in my lane and like maintain course and altitude since like 2005 or something. I mean, they've been working on this for a really long time. And then Tesla very clearly eclipsed them in how well that system works and how broad the domain is. But there was this big question of like, are these other car companies going to be willing to do this weird, you're driving, you're not driving, your eyes are on, but your hands are off style of autonomy? And Mercedes is blazing ahead with that. And I'm really interested to see how that plays out. And then having driven the GLC prototype, only in weird conditions where I was drifting it around on sand dunes, but just that, like, if BMW...
Which everybody will do on their way to the store.
Naturally. Well, it's like, also talking to German engineers is hilarious because I was like, do you guys test every single car you build on like giant sand dunes to see if it can climb 500 feet sand cliffs? They're like, no. Anything that has a terrain mode in the system. Because like to them, that means that it must be able to climb sand dunes or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I don't think the average GLE owner is doing this. But that was such a notable experience to me last year because, you know, BMW is a company where I've been impressed by their EVs and I'm excited to see what's next. Mercedes, I have not been impressed by their EVs and I was curious to see if that would... I haven't been super impressed by their combustion stuff in a while and I was curious to see if they could turn this thing around. And just early impression is GLC rocked. It was really fun to drive and, you know, felt cool inside and just felt like a Mercedes take on a software-defined vehicle, which is what I've wanted to see. Not a half Mercedes, half Bosch, half all of this old legacy components. It felt like, you know, this is the first car that was designed really understanding the process that makes EVs. And so I think that'll be great. And I'm really excited to put that versus the iX3 head-to-head because they both have different advantages. You know, the iX3 has more range and a bigger battery. GLC's got that 2-speed transmission and, you know, its own new software architecture. So I don't know what'll win, but I'm excited to see real competition in this space as opposed to just ceding it to Tesla.
Yeah, and I'll just to put a finer point on the driver assistance bit and a slight correction, hands-on. The Mercedes point-to-point system, hands-on. But this is essentially, like you said, this is a Tesla FSD type system where you can get in, put in an address, and kind of have your hands hovering, you know, over the wheel, and it'll do everything in a city that you might do, right? It'll go around double parked cars. It'll do traffic lights. It'll do roundabouts, intersections, left turns, right turns. This is something that only Tesla has offered so far in America. And now Mercedes is going to be the first or one of the first to offer that kind of system that isn't Tesla. It's really, really cool. And from the videos we've seen, from Patrick's impressions of it, it actually seems really capable. You
Yeah.
know, it seems like they weren't giving it this kind of sanitized demonstration. They really put it out there in downtown San Francisco and had it
Yeah.
do a lot of complicated things. And from what I can tell, it did that really well thanks to this NVIDIA system.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, Rivian too says they're going to be doing their own version of Tesla FSD where it's supervised but works anywhere as well. And to me, that model of giving you a car that looks like it can do all of the maneuvers of driving, but you are still legally driving, it's a tough concept to explain to your customers and to do in a responsible way. So I've long been curious whether anyone would follow Tesla's path or the rest were going to do what it looked like they did, which was level 2 straight to level 4 and all of that middling stuff kind of try to get out of it. And clearly that's not what's happening. So I'm really excited to see what does a Rivian or a Mercedes or an NVIDIA version of this feel like? And, did they feel safer? Did they feel closer? But I think I've never been more sure that this autonomy race is not going to cool down ever. We are in the push towards the finish line where like car companies want to sell you an autonomous car and they want you to think of them as a leader in that space. And this is part of it.
Next up, we've got the Honda Zero Series, the saloon and SUV, sedan and SUV, which frankly, maybe I shouldn't admit this, before I read your article, I forgot that those were real and coming this year.
Don't forget RSX first. The Acura version
and the Acura RSX. These are important for Honda because Honda has yet to make a real long-range modern EV in the US by itself. It has the Honda Prologue, which is a rebodied Chevy Blazer built by GM. It had the Acura ZDX, basically same deal on that. This is Honda's EV efforts going forward. This is its software-defined vehicle platform, first one that it's done in-house. So what do people need to know about the Zero Series, and what do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, so it's built in the US. It's a software-defined, architecture. It's got an AI assistant, but that's really what we know. I mean, my understanding is the platform is 800 volt capable, but the early things are going to be 400 volt. And Honda, is saying sort of what they've been saying for years, which is we know we're not the first in this market. We're being slow, we're being deliberate, and when we come, we're going to come big, and we're going to really, do something amazing. And we'll see if the Zero Series is that. So far, Honda hasn't proven any credibility in this space, and I think for me specifically, they have negative credibility in that twice you've seen this cycle of all these car journalists get flown to Japan, Honda rolls out the red carpet to explain what the future is going to be like. I was in this conversation where I'm sitting at a round table with the CEO and the president of transformation or something like that, one of these high-ranking executives in end of 2022, and they're talking about how the GM partnership is integral to their long-term EV plans and how these two companies are going to work together to build affordable EVs and leverage their scale to outcompete competitors. And then the next year, they brought, I think Kevin went out or whatever, and it was like, okay, never mind, just kidding, GM is not part of it, and we're going to be doing this and this and this. And then, the tax credit rollout and the regulatory rollback comes out and they cut their EV plans again. And so I've seen them cut their EV ambitions 2 or 3 times at this point without yet launching a car. So yeah. I think Honda makes great cars. I love Honda. Like, I've owned a bunch of Hondas. I recommend them to my family. But they have not proven any demonstrated capability in software. And while they have a great capability in hybrids, they have never made an EV here, and the EVs they have made globally have mostly flopped. So they have a lot to prove, and I would like to see, number one, the price before I say anything too much further, because I think Honda wins when they're competing on value. But yeah, so far I want to see something in this to get people really excited beyond, hey, everyone's making an EV, here's ours.
Yeah, and here's ours with this super wacky design, right? They came out with these concepts. The saloon has this like crazy extended wedge shape that they claim is gonna that's not going away, that they're going to stick with that kind of design. So far, we don't know a lot about them besides that they're electric, that they'll be, good and advanced, and that
the RSX will have rear double wishbone suspension. That was the only technical detail in the press release, which I think shows that Acura knows exactly what their customer is focused in on.
Another car with a lot to prove, I think. Another company with a lot to prove. Tesla, the only new Tesla that we're getting this year is the Cybercab, right? This is Tesla's 2-door, 2-seat, purpose-built robo-taxi, no steering wheel, no pedals, no mirrors. And this is supposed to kind of drive forward Tesla's, self-driving ambitions. Elon Musk says this is going to be all over the country, probably all over the world someday, shuttling people around. Right now, Tesla doesn't really make a self-driving car yet, so who knows? What do you think about the Cybercab? I feel like it's interesting because it feels to me like such vaporware still, but we have to talk about it, because if Tesla really does pull off a steering wheel free Cybercab that they are selling to people for under $30,000 this year, that is actually autonomous, that's obviously an enormous deal for everybody. So
I think all of that is possible, except I'm skeptical on the this year part of it, because that event where he said the robotaxi would come out, I believe was also when he said that unsupervised FSD would cover the majority of the US population by the end of 2025. And so this is just,
which didn't happen,
right? And it's only in one city, and it's not even unsupervised at this moment, or some of them seem to. Anyway, I think this is just the core challenge of covering this space right now, is like, how do you separate the claims from the reality? I think Elon has proven that they can really disrupt all kinds of markets and do things that no other company can, and that they will rarely do it on the timetable that they lay out. And so I think Cybercab is interesting. I still, for the life of me, don't really understand why it has 2 seats. I understand that the majority of rideshare drives only involve 1 or 2 passengers, but I don't know. That to me feels like an unforced error. I think this is a really interesting product that is built on a foundation that they haven't finished building yet, which is unsupervised FSD. And so I would love to say more about this. I don't know about the software that'll power it, and there's really no hardware specs except for the fact that it's going to have wireless charging and a relatively small battery, from what I remember. It's like 53 kilowatt hours. So that's cool. I think this would be a big deal for the company. I just don't know when it'll come out, and I think the value unlock of autonomy in the existing fleet is more valuable than what Cybercab is going to do in the near term, I would think.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, because Tesla's FSD has gotten a lot better. We've tried it. It's really, really impressive. It's supervised, but it does everything quite well, the majority of the time. They do have taxis going around in Austin with a person that's not in the driver's seat. They're in the passenger's seat, front passenger seat, a safety monitor. So Tesla's making strides on autonomy. Yeah. It's just that I have a feeling, or I guess we know this, right? When Elon announces the Cybertruck or the Cybercab in late 2024, and he says, we're going to have unsupervised self-driving really soon. Like, he assumes that by 2026, when the Cybercab goes into production, that autonomy is going to be solved finally, right? After 10 years of saying so, that they're going to have full self-driving capability. They can just put in that thing and sell to people. Yeah. But right now they don't, at least as far as we know, as far as, the public is concerned, they don't have that yet. So this is going into production in April with no steering wheel and also no Tesla autonomy. So
also
it's,
notably, they also said it's going to be this new unboxed method that's going to redefine the factory. And like, if that were happening and going to happen at one of the busiest auto factories in the world in less than 3 months, we would probably see some sign of that. And so, like, to me, there's the weird thing of like, we're in the weird space where like, there's the time where he announces it and it sounds like the date is kind of BS. And you just have to be like, all right, well, he often lies, but whatever. And now we're just at the weird point where we're starting to see it's like the Cybertruck, or sorry, it's like the Semi or the Roadster, where there's just like demonstrably not what was supposed to happen is clearly not happening. And so we're just caught in this weird loop often where it's like, okay, well, he assumes that FSD will be done by then, based on the fact that his engineers told him that it wouldn't be done like that by then, and then he told them too bad it will be. Like, this story, the whole myth of it all becomes so inextricably linked of this, where it's hard to say what any of it means, because you really cannot tell what is true and what is going to happen. So with Tesla, I'm like, we'll see what they do.
We will definitely see what they do. We'll see if this thing comes out in April.
Yeah.
Next up, a definitely real car, one that existed before and is now coming back. This is the Chevy Bolt. Chevy's affordable and beloved EV got canceled in 2023. It took a hiatus. Now it is reborn with a largely carryover design, more or less, but definitely notably better specs and kind of an overall package that is a lot more suited for 2026. The big headline number, starting price under $30,000, $28,995. Currently, that is the cheapest EV in America that we know of. The Nissan Leaf could end up undercutting that, the base model of the Nissan Leaf, which we don't know the price or details about that yet. But right now, if you want a cheap new EV, this is going to be the one to get.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. I mean, new it's interesting. The guts are new. But I think this is
not that new. You're right.
Right, but I think this is almost a sign of how product updates. I mean, look at Tesla. I think this is how product updates are going to work for the EV market a little bit, where you have a shell like the Bolt, which people like, and it's charming and whatever. And now you have a new battery chemistry, the lithium iron phosphate batteries that will be the first LFP batteries that GM uses in the US, which are going to have payoffs for, stability and for obviously affordability, but notably just that they tend to last longer. So there's all these benefits, but most of them are under the hood and in the software stack, and like the product itself looks very familiar. So I don't think this is going to generate like a crazy amount of buzz, but I don't think GM even wants that. I think this is very much like GM would rather that you spend more money on an Equinox or a Blazer, but they want to own this lower end of the market, and I think this is going to do that. I mean, the Bolt was already great. The problem was it couldn't fast charge. I mean, it could, but 50 kilowatts today is like barely fast charging. 55 kilowatts.
Yeah.
And, the software was it was clearly built around ICE cars, and there was no heat pump. So huge efficiency loss in the area in the winter. And all that is solved now. So, and the price is the same. So this is nothing but a win in my book. Is it going to change the map? Maybe not, but I think this will be a great option. Everyone I meet who has a Bolt loves a Bolt. And the people who don't like the Bolt are people who insist that no one on earth could ever use a vehicle so small and impractical because they're from America. But everyone who buys one loves one. So I'm excited. When the Equinox and Blazer came out, they had crazy deals for returning Bolt customers. And as all of these EVs are getting more expensive, as my Blazer EV lease ends, I'm hoping that GM recognizes that there's a lot of people like me who leased EVs, who love EVs, that like, I'm not going to transfer into another Blazer EV and pay basically 25% more for the same car, but I might pay the same amount for a new Bolt. So I'm curious to see if they offer some crazy deals to all of the Ultium returning. Just so many EV lease returns are coming in this year that I think GM would be foolish not to try to own that with having the cheapest EV on sale.
Yeah, and just a couple of the specs. Fast charging up to 150 kilowatts, which is decent for today. It's a big upgrade from 55. Range got a slight upgrade to 255 miles. So, overall, it's a pretty good package.
Yeah.
Plus a Tesla style NACS port, which, you kind of can't be a new EV these days without a Tesla port.
Yeah. And notably, I was worried, if anyone is a GM EV nerd, they may know that on the cheaper EVs, the pack voltage is really low. So you get these weird charging curves that last a while. So on a 150 kilowatt charger in an Equinox EV, even though the car can pull 150 kilowatts in an ideal world, on a real 150, you're going to pull like a 50-minute 10 to 80 time, which is just not very competitive. I was really worried that the Bolt was going to be worse because it has a smaller battery, and how the GM packs work is the smaller battery, lower voltage, but this is a new pack, and that means despite having the same 150 kilowatt peak as the Blazer and the Equinox, it's actually got a better charging curve. It's going to get 10 to 80 in about 30 minutes, GM is saying, which is right where you want it to be. I mean, obviously you're not 800 volt, you're not like at the top of the class, but this car is actually going to charge better than GM's more expensive SUVs, which I think will be a big benefit for Bolt owners.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Some more kind of low-end cars that we want to talk about. Toyota and Subaru are coming out with this kind of whole new family of EVs this year. This is really notable. We don't actually know the pricing on the Toyota CHR or BZ Woodland yet. We do know the pricing on the Subaru equivalents, the Uncharted and the Trailseeker. Those are going to cost around $35,000 and $40,000 respectively. But in general, like, I think the thing that I notice when we look at this list, when I look at your bigger list of like the 30 cars, is that the affordability question is not getting solved that fast, right?
Yeah.
There are a handful of new vehicles coming out, new EVs coming out that are in that $35,000 or less range, but not that many. Almost everything new coming out this year, it might be super exciting, but it's going to be like $60, $70, $80, $90,000, which has kind of always been the case. Yeah. Maybe better value, but still the actual price is just not that attainable. So it's nice to see these Toyotas and Subarus coming out and sort of helping that with some brands that people really love.
Yeah, and I think, you know, this is an automaker. Toyota famously didn't seem to care much about its first electric effort, and to hear the company tell the story was surprised by how much people responded to the BZ4X. I personally was surprised by that, like how many more people have been interested in BZ4Xs in casual conversations I've had than like Hyundai and Kia options, just because this assumption that I think a lot of Americans have that Toyota builds the best cars, especially when it comes to efficiency. So there's been this weird thing where US consumers broadly in surveys seem to suggest that beyond Tesla, they think Honda and Toyota make the best electric cars, which I think, you know, there's room for all kinds of opinions in the world of expertise in car reviewing, but I don't think you would find any car reviewer who says that that's true, right? Honda is completely disqualified, and Toyota, the BZ4X, you know, the first one, you could not fast charge more than 1 or 2 times in a day without the car being like, okay, I need to throttle that for the rest of the day to protect myself. So I'm excited to see them make progress. I think some of the celebration may be a little bit premature of people like, oh my God, Toyota's like really pushing them hard now. And it's like, they're offering more options. So far, it seems like these are just different segment versions of the BZ. They're stretching it in different ways. And yeah, I think, but what they're doing, the smart thing is just the CHR and the Uncharted being slightly cheaper, smaller, basically electric equivalents to the Crosstrek. I think we'll do really well. And I'm really excited that Toyota at least has options. So many people are insistent on getting a Toyota. So at least the Toyota options are now decent in every category. And I'm excited to see them keep improving on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really curious to see how much they decide to sell the CHR for.
Yeah.
And how much they decide to push that one. Because that is the one that could really put Toyota on the map more so than they have been, right? There's like you said, those surveys that said people want a Toyota EV the most.
Yeah.
Those were coming out before Toyota even had any EVs. So there's this kind of like latent demand for people who think Toyota makes great hybrids. Of course they make great EVs. I want one. Right. And I do think that just having those more options will be a great thing for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And if it convinces the company too that like just keep pressing, keep improving, because so many of the things too that they're struggling with are just basic design decisions where Toyota is risk averse. That's why they build great cars. Like I don't think people understand that it's not just that Toyota is technically better than these other companies. They prioritize for different things, and they prioritize for reliability above all else, which means they're going to be slower to adopt certain things and change their processes. But I want to start seeing, you know, they've been investing a lot of money into software, and I want to start seeing a lot of that come through. We've seen a little bit of that in, you know, the new RAV4 has that new Qualcomm software-defined vehicle architecture, you know, built into it. But I do want to see things like automatic route planning built into these cars that don't exist on the BZ yet. You have to use an external app. Things like that where just you want to start seeing them recognize, okay, what do our EV specific customers want? Not just what do our customers want that we might be able to get them into an EV with. It's a different way of approaching. And I think Toyota's moving there, but they approach things the way they do. That's why they are slow and smart and don't break.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Moving us along, this is the last one on our list. This is definitely not the last EV coming out this year, but this is a really big one. This is the Ram extended range EV, the Ram 1500 REV. Their big full-size pickup truck. They killed the battery electric one. Now it is just the range extended one that is coming out this year. This has a V6 engine that is feeding energy to a battery, so you can gas it up at the gas station and or plug it in at an EV charger or at home. And the promise is it's kind of this best of both worlds, right? It has essentially limitless range, gas powered car type range where you can just stop at a gas station wherever, keep going. It can tow better than a regular electric pickup truck, but also for your daily kind of errands, you can plug it in, you can get around cheaply and efficiently. This is another one. I think we're ending kind of on another big question mark, right? Just like the Slate, the EREV, the Ram EREV, there's also going to be a Jeep Grand Wagoneer EREV, same platform, also coming out this year. That's a big full-size SUV. I think it's a big question mark. Like, I think that it's a really interesting concept. I think people loved their Chevy Volts and their BMW i3s, which was, you don't think so?
Yeah.
Do people not love the Chevy Volt?
Sorry, the owners love them. Did the
that's what I'm
market
saying.
love them?
I'm saying the owners. I'm saying people who bought those cars, they loved them. They recognize, a lot of these people recognized how cool it was to be able to have this kind of dual powertrain. Whether you can get Ram truck buyers who weren't that interested in an EV to try this brand new type of powertrain, I'm of two minds. I think it's a cool concept. I'm also skeptical that people are really going to take to it, or that these companies are going to be able to convince people to take to this new way of, driving and fueling their cars.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think let's back up. To start with, I think, with the death of the most popular car in the segment, I think we can conclusively say that electric trucks, the full-size variation that we see now, is not a successful marketplace, or not a healthy market at this moment. Like, there's a lot of options in the electric car space, but fundamentally none of them have solved the problem, which is that it's still cheaper to have a gas truck that does all of this stuff. And for the very, very high intensity loads that certain gas truck drivers you do, whether it's long haul towing or, things like that, there are certain things that electric trucks just can't do yet. And there will always, like, the people that are towing their campers or, hot-shotting across the country or towing other cars across the country, like, those people are going to be some of the last people to go full electric. So, in theory, the solution would be an EREV, right? You get the best of both worlds, as you've talked about. Ram says you'll have 145 miles of electric range, which is a lot. That's enough for almost anyone to do their daily commuting on. It also means that this car that's not a full EV is going to have 93 kilowatt hours of battery, plus a V6 engine. So when people talk about best of both worlds, EVs are too expensive, that's where I start to say, okay, but when you realize how much more weight you need, then you need all these batteries, and then you need a big V6 to charge it up. And to talk about the i3, I will also add that BMW was sued in the United States because under certain conditions, the i3, the range extender, was not powerful enough to top off its battery to the point where it could maintain peak output while driving up a hill. So if you were doing a long extended mountain climb, eventually you would lose power. And I believe BMW was sued over this because they said, you advertise this, it can't, put up that power while going up a hill. Why am I bringing that up?
Who needs to go up hills, Mac?
Who needs to?
You're so demanding.
So why am I bringing that up? Because I think EREVs are a really, really obvious and perfect solution if you don't understand why making cars is so hard, which is balancing all these things, right? There is no solution to the economics problem of large vehicles. There are different compromises. And so there's a compromise of making just adding 200 kilowatt hours of batteries like, Chevy does with the Silverado EV, which is that you drive up the price and the weight. And then there's a compromise with the engine, which is that you don't have a lot of the benefits of, EV life, which is never having to worry about, having an engine to maintain, never having to worry about, just hearing that engine making noise, whatever. So I think there's a lot of complexity around the EREVs. And I think that is going to it's going to take a while before the products mature to the point where they meet all of the needs of customers. I would not be surprised if the first generation of the EREVs, there's people who are towing for a long distance up a hill and suddenly run out of battery and get mad or anything like that. But in the long term, in the medium term, I should say, in the 10-year horizon or something, I don't see electric trucks I don't think an electric F-250 replacement is going to be cheaper than a gas F-250 for quite some time. And so if we want to make inroads there, we need EREVs. We need something that balances this. Whether the 3-row SUVs and the big pickups end up being plug-in hybrids or EREVs, I think is a choice to the consumer that they're not going to know or even notice really what the difference is between an EREV and a plug-in hybrid. And I think in this segment, there's benefits for both, right? Being able to actually engage your engine as a drive unit for high-speed highway cruising like you do when towing actually has a lot of efficiency benefits. So point is, this is going to be a huge market. This is important. I think Ram was one of the first to call this shot long before, Ford pivoted towards EREV Lightning. They're correct that this is a big market. Obviously, Scout is coming in. The question is Ram going to be the company that nails it on the first try? And so far, Stellantis' EV efforts have been pretty unimpressive. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, and also from a marketing perspective and like a communications perspective, they haven't been good at explaining like why you should buy an EV. And so I'm not sure they'll do the same thing for this. I think just to build on one thing you said, which is about the F-250, I think that for commercial purposes, right, for businesses, I think this makes a lot more sense. I think it's a lot easier to convince a business, like they just do it by math, right? If you're a business and you tow stuff, you have a company, you need to haul things long distances or whatever, you're just going to look at the math of like, okay, how much does it cost me to fuel this thing versus how much does it cost, to buy the thing? It's not an emotional purchase. It's a fill it up, charge it at the fleet depot, gas it up when you need to. Then that makes sense. For regular people, I think it's a little bit of a more complicated sell.
See, I buy your difference there, but I come to the complete opposite conclusion out of that.
Oh, interesting.
To me, I think commercial customers are the customers for electric trucks. Like an F-150 Lightning can make a lot of sense if you know exactly what you're going to do with it. But the average consumer, probably an F-150 Lightning does make more sense for them than they realize, but they're afraid of that.
Yeah.
Oh, what if I have to drive to Florida totally on a whim, even though I've never done that? And so they need that instant refueling capability. I think, to me, the problem with plug-in hybrids or EREVs is always going to be that if you're a business that is configured to charge your trucks every night, then very few businesses are doing over 150 miles per day on their truck. And even if they are they doing over 300 miles that you can get on an electric pickup truck for similar pricing? I don't know. So I think those people are more likely to use electric trucks because they know what they're doing and they know they're not making those weird road trips. And that once a year that they have to, they're like, okay, well, we're going to save $3,000 by me having 45 minutes of break time on this drive. That's going to be fine.
That's fair.
But it's the truck owner who says, no, I don't have a camper. I don't have this, but I might want to do this. I want my truck to be able to do anything. And I think that's why EREVs are going to win here, is that consumers have been sold trucks that can go anywhere, hauling anything, anytime, that are cheap to maintain, and that they know like the back of their hands. They're very loyal truck customers, and I think those buyers are just slow to change. And so I think the safety of still having a gas engine will be very meaningful to a large amount of buyers. And hopefully when they buy those trucks, they'll learn over time that they're not using the gas engine enough to really justify it. And then eventually we get to EVs, but
Hmm.
We could go on for much longer.
Yeah.
And yeah.
No, those are, this is most of the time we have. Those are the EVs that we wanted to talk about. There are a lot more that we are not getting to today. I don't know. You want to rattle off just a few that we have not talked about that you're thinking about?
Yeah, I would love to, because it's so hard to pick what was going to be on this list, because I've been, again, 32 models. There's a lot coming out, and a lot of stuff that's not going to be super relevant to the main market, like you said, in terms of pricing, but is really important to the automakers. So, for instance, Jaguar is in the middle of that controversial rebrand. And I think that Type 00, or whatever they call the production version, is coming out this year. That will be super fascinating, because that is also coming at the same time as the Range Rover EV. Neither Jaguar nor Land Rover was in a great position a couple years ago, last year, any time in recent history. The company has been, struggling. And there's a real question right now of like, who is going to thread this needle and make this transition? And like, we haven't seen a Jaguar EV since the I-Pace, which was an early and failed experiment built by Magna also. And so I'm really interested to see what their move up market will do. As their executives have said, it's not like they were pivoting from a winning strategy. They tried to beat BMW and Audi and they failed. So we'll see what happens next. At the same time, Mercedes, we already covered a couple Mercedes models, but they're also doing a van-specific architecture where they're going to do a limousine electric van of the type that exists in like Asian markets, but has never made it to the US. But we do expect the Mercedes version to come here. Super fascinated to hear about that. They're also doing their first AMG-specific electric platform, AMG.EA, which will underpin a sports car this year and then probably an SUV next year. So that's going to be like axial flux motors, all kinds of weird, sophisticated stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Porsche is doing the first mass production vehicle with a wireless charger in the US market, assuming it beats the Cybercab to market. Then there's Sony-Honda Mobility, which just announced they're doing SUV in addition to the sedan, which is supposed to launch this year. I'm pretty skeptical of that, as I'll explain later. But, and then Volvo is also in a week or two, I'm flying to Gothenburg to see their next-gen SDV, their EX60, their version of like a BMW iX3 or, Mercedes GLC with EQ Tech. So there's just, in every single corner, there's stuff going on. And there's still stuff I haven't mentioned. Oh my God, yeah, there's an electric Ferrari coming, which we didn't even, you can tell it's going to be a big year when electric Ferrari is like a footnote at the end.
The last one on the list, yeah.
Like, there's just too much to talk about, man.
Yeah, super exciting stuff. I think there are a lot of reasons to be optimistic, to be hopeful for this next year of EVs, maybe even more so than last year. Just so many cool cars coming out across the board. Now we're going to move on to Plus Minus, where we discuss the winners and losers of the last week in the EV space. Who you got, Mac?
Yeah, so for Minus, we had a relatively tame CES this year in terms of car announcements. But Sony-Honda Mobility is still there, still showing off the same car they've been showing off for the past 4 or 5 years. Afeela is finally going to launch this year. I did this whole deep dive last year at CES interviewing their president, and I just came away so skeptical of how this is all going to work. It's like $100,000 and has weird, even the biggest Sony fan, if you love PlayStation, any Sony fan will tell you the company does not do good UIs. My camera, my Sony camera is amazing, but you go to the settings menu and there's like 18 different subdivisions. So I don't think this company is that as good as it thinks at doing UI. And the charging and range and the physical specs of the vehicle are all pretty uncompetitive. And it's launching pretty late, only in California, at a very high price.
Like $100,000.
Yeah, $100,000 for the launch edition. I think there will be like a $90,000 version or something, but there's no. I asked the president of the company directly, like, what is the case? Who is this for? Like, what does it do better than the competition? And it's the same, like, we're going to have a better AI experience and the car's going to be personalized and all the same stuff that anyone will tell you. And now the SUV, they revealed, first of all, why the hell didn't it start as an SUV? And now they're saying the SUV won't arrive until 2028, which, like, there's just not going to be room by 2028 for people to be, I don't know. We'll see.
For a new brand. Yeah, this is a weird one. until they unveiled the SUV, that it was kind of on my list as one of the companies that may just kind of call it quits in EVs and just decide, you know what, this doesn't work anymore. I guess not. They are still in it.
Yeah.
My plus this week is Donut Lab. This is a Finnish company that claims to have developed the world's first all solid state battery that is ready for mass production, ready to be put into vehicles. It's going into a motorcycle from a startup called Verge Motorcycles this year. They say that these motorcycles are shipping in the not too distant future. So this is like a really, really big deal if true. I can't help but still just be skeptical because there are like dozens of companies that have been trying to crack solid state batteries for a long time. You have big players in this like Toyota and QuantumScape, companies that we've all like heard of and been following. But this is a really big game changer if true. They are saying that this is going to be on the road soon. So I think we'll know very quickly whether this is BS or not. And I hope it's not, because solid state batteries would be a gigantic deal for the EV space. Faster charging, safer, more energy dense, better in every way. So I'm hoping that Donut Lab is legit.
Yeah, I mean, I one just little bit of hopium for us all. I mean, there's a pretty obvious reason that we might see this in motorcycles first, which is just that we've seen production solid state batteries in like tiny microelectronics that are this big or something. It seems to be a big part of the challenge is scaling the system and dealing with the fact that at the large sizes of automotive packs, you have that swelling issue. And I wonder if that might be easier to handle in a motorcycle. Cooling's easier to handle, and then it can be smaller, less yield, all of those things. So, I would love to see this. I really hope it happens, but I do think regardless, within the next couple of years, I mean, solid state's coming. And I finally really believe that, not in the way that I'm like, oh yeah, eventually maybe my grandkids will have fusion energy. But like, I think solid state will be here pretty soon. So I'm excited to hear more.
Yeah, definitely excited to hear more. I know we are talking to them this week. And to be clear, I have no reason to doubt. I have no real reason to think that they are not legit. It is just such a big claim. You have to have a little bit of skepticism about that.
For sure. It's like if a guy you've never heard of just said he ran a 3-minute mile, and you'd be like, well, what?
Well,
Where did that come
bro.
from? Yeah.
All right, Mac, thanks again for joining. Always great having you on the show.
Great to be here.
Thanks for listening to the Plugged In podcast from InsideEVs. We'll be back next Friday as always. Today's show was produced by Michael Perkins and brought to you by the Motorsport Network. Make sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts, subscribe to the InsideEVs YouTube channel, and check out all our latest coverage on InsideEVs.com. See you next time.